Howdy, howdy, and more howdy to you. Welcome, beloved, to the Lady Walker Show. I am Lady Walker, and once again, we have another gem dandy of a show in store for you. My guest has written her very first book. It is entitled Caught, From Correctional Officer to Federal Inmate. Welcome to the show, Miss Janice Singleton. Greetings.
Hello. How are you doing?
All is well with me. What about you?
I'm doing okay.
Well, great. Now, you have written your very first book, and which is entitled Caught, From Correctional Officer to Federal Inmate. Now, we are not going to talk about the book just yet. Let's first get the audience acquainted with who is Janice Singleton.
Janice Singleton, she's a mother of one. I was raised in Jackson, Mississippi, so I'm a native of Mississippi. I graduated from Jackson State University with a BS in criminal justice. I was raised by a single parent. I'm a people person. I like to talk.
That's good.
Yes, ma'am, I like to talk.
You have any siblings?
I'm the oldest of four.
Okay.
2 sisters and 2 brothers.
All right.
I lost a brother, he was 18, he was killed.
Okay.
So,
and before where you are now, you were, or you may still consider yourself to be an entrepreneur.
I am an entrepreneur.
And in past time, you worked as a
correctional officer.
Okay, and at that same time, you had a tax business.
I had a tax business. I started my tax business at the age of 18.
Oh, that's really young. Started a tax business at 18.
Yes, and when I started my tax business at 18, at that time, we didn't have computers. We did it with the booklet that they would send every year around December in the mail, and I would just, take the information out of the booklet and just get me a pencil and prepare the taxes. And I learned how to do taxes in the 12th grade.
At 18, what really inspired you to even want to go in that direction to start a tax business?
Because I like numbers. I like working with numbers.
Really? Wow. That must have been really interesting. Did you go to your mom and say, I want to start my own tax business, or?
No, she was sort of shocked because she knew I liked math, and once I learned how to do it in government, I think it was government, they taught us how to do tax returns, just gave us a little brief introduction on how to do tax returns. So I just took it up under my belt. And every year I would just sit at the kitchen table and I would prepare taxes, and I would charge like $10.
Did you have a lot of clients?
I basically had like my family first. And then over the years, I just would do it every year, and I made it, at first it was like a hobby. And it wasn't about the money, it was just that.
But you were learning, you were actually, preparing your business for the future. But right. I don't know if you looked at it like that.
Because I was a teenage mom. I had my son at 17. And so that was like extra money during the tax season. I started my first job at 17 as well. So I worked, and then I did that seasonal. And then as the years would grow, they came out with the turbo. So then I learned how to use the turbo software. And I increased the price at that time. So, and then I would get clients like my friends as well as my family members. And still today, up until 2007, I basically still had the same clients.
Well, that's good. That's really good. Now, once again, looking at the age of 18, but you had your son, you only have one child, at 17 years of age, and you were doing taxes during when you were in high school, 12th grade?
12th grade.
Okay. And so let's just say from that age, 12th grade on up, when you got out of high school, you went to JSU.
Well, first I went to Hines Junior College, and I graduated with an AA in criminal justice.
Okay.
And then later, I went to Jackson State.
Now, what inspired you to do criminal justice?
Because I've always liked the Charlie's Angels, Andy Griffin.
Did you?
Like math, and I like just watching crime shows.
Yeah. And so you ended up working in a correctional facility?
Well, at first I started working for the Jackson Police Department, and I worked there for like 5 years. I was the identification clerk.
Okay, and then from there?
And then later I resigned and I went back to school to work on my master's in social work.
So you got your master in social work?
No, I didn't complete it because after I started, I really didn't like it.
Didn't?
So then later I went and worked with the Mississippi Department of Corrections, and I worked there for 10 years until I got in trouble.
Until you got in trouble. But you also were an insurance?
And then I worked for a replica insurance company, and I did that for like 5 years. And I enjoy writing policies because I'm a firm believer to insurance. And my aunt, she worked for A.L. Williams back in the day, and she would always tell me, you know, you need to make sure you have insurance on, you know, you and your son. So at that time, I think when I got insurance, I was like 19.
But that's interesting, especially with being 19, to be responsible enough to get your insurance, even though, you know, you had a child, but that was really responsible.
But I was a real responsible young lady. Yeah. And after having my son, I never had a time to like hang out. I skated a lot, but I never like just, you know.
Party down?
I didn't party. I just,
you know, like young people, you know, you go to clubs, you do this and you do that.
Right, I was just, you know, basically just settled. I just worked, went to school, worked, and just raised my son.
That is something. And I know in the book you talk about how your being from a single mom, how she raised you, your grandmother as well. They raised you to do what is right.
Right.
And any decision that you made that was wrong, that is not a reflection of your upbringing.
That's not a reflection of my upbringing.
Because,
the choices
you know,
that I made them on my own.
Right, because, you know, sometimes, and I think I said it before we even got on air, that sometimes, and I have said it many times and don't mind saying it again, sometimes parents get a bad rep that when their children go astray, the parents may be really blamed for it. And you can raise your kids to do what is right, but for some reason, they decide to choose something that may not be right.
Right. My mom, she had me at 15, so she was a young parent as well. So she worked a lot, and we stayed with my grandmom a lot, but she did what was best, and she didn't, like, approve of, you know, you just, like, staying out late and hanging out in the streets. So she, like I say, she did a pretty good job in raising us. It's just that when I got older, and you know, we all do things, but right. She never knew. And during the time that I got in trouble, that was my first time ever getting in trouble. So it was just a shock to everybody. So even my father, he was shocked. My stepmom was shocked, but it wasn't like, they was shocked because they didn't expect that out of me.
I know, because
and it wasn't a reflection of them, you know, raising me. It's just the fact that at that time, no one knew, like, I gambled a lot.
Well, hold on for a moment. We are going to take a break and let you come back and talk about that addiction. You know, it can really have a strong hold on you and cause you to do some interesting, well, not so good things.
Right.
All righty. Beloved, we will be right back. Welcome back, beloved. My guest has written her first book entitled Caught, From a Correctional Officer to a Federal Inmate, Janice Singleton. Okay, Janice, before we went on break, you were getting ready to talk about this addiction to gambling that you eventually some kind of way acquired early on. So tell us about that.
Because
that addiction led you to where you ended up,
yes, ma'am,
in prison. So tell us about that addiction.
When the casinos came to Vicksburg, I think in the late 1994, me and my friends or my relatives, we would go and gamble. And my favorite game was blackjack. So we learned how to play blackjack. And at the time, it was kind of funny because we started out playing like $25 instead of playing like $1 or $5.
Oh, so okay. Started out playing pretty big.
Pretty big, right. And so we would win, and sometimes we would lose. And it's like where we really didn't have anything to do, so we would just ride to Vicksburg to go to the casinos. And over a period of years, a time I would go to the casino by myself. and just gamble. Just like, you know, sometimes you might get a little depressed, or you might just want to just go and get away and just enjoy yourself. And so during the time that I was gambling, over the years, I didn't realize that it was taking an effect, that I would sleep, wake up thinking about going to the casino.
Really?
So a lot of times I would just get on 220 and go to the casino by myself. And basically I didn't like going to the casinos with people, because you might stay longer than they anticipate, and then you have people that say, okay, you went to the casino, you played $500, you played, you know, you playing too much money, and then people come back, you know, and tell your business, oh, she gambled all this money. So I would just basically go by myself. And then one year I had the opportunity to go to Vegas, and then with all the lights and just seeing the high rollers, and you like, oh, I can win this much money, and I could do this and I could do that. So at that time it became addicted, but I wasn't aware that it was an addiction, because, you know, most addictions, you look at people, even people that do drugs, you look at people that, you know, lose their homes, lose their cars, just lose their savings, retirement, and I wasn't that person.
You didn't lose any of that.
I didn't lose any of that. So I just assumed that I was just doing it just for a hobby.
So it was getting costly, gambling big time.
Well, it really wasn't getting, it was getting costly, but I never looked at it like that, because I made money. So if I went and played in a certain amount of money, it didn't affect me, because I still had lights, I still paid my house note, I still paid my car note, I still took care of my son. But apparently it was costly, but I wasn't looking at it like that. I was just looking at, okay, I'm gonna take this money, and if I go over there and lose $1,000, hey, I just lost $1,000. So one particular day I was sitting at work, and I worked visitation. I would input the data for the offenders. And I was just, you know, just strolling on the computer, and I was like, oh, you know, I maybe could get some of these names and take them to my business and file some taxes, and no one would ever know. And at this time, I had 4 locations. No reason to do what I did.
Because you were making pretty good with having your own business.
I was making 6 digits, so it wasn't a reason. I just did it. I just stepped outside of my character and made a bad decision. So at the time, I only did a few. And when the money came back, I was like, this pretty easy, you know. Nobody's not gonna know. I worked with a coworker. She didn't know. She had her desk, I had my desk. She had her own computer, I had my computer. And we logged in up under our ID. So I took a couple of names. And
these were names that you thought, okay, this person is in here for life?
Okay, I took names of offenders that was housed at other facilities. I didn't take names from I didn't take any names from the facility that I worked at. And I didn't take any females, I just took males.
Yeah.
Because where I worked, it was women and females. I mean, women and men. So I said, well, I'm not gonna mess with anybody here. I'm just gonna go like to Parchment and different places. And that's what I did, but I would go and look at people that had a lengthy sentence, not knowing that those people or that person was gonna make parole one day.
You didn't think that.
I didn't think that.
Normally that's how it is. You don't have all your T's
I
crossed
thought
and your
I
I's
did.
dotted, okay?
I thought I did, but I didn't. So I would take a few names. So when I took those first 5 names, just say maybe 3 of the returns came back. So I was like, oh, okay, this is pretty easy. I got a good $15,000. You know, I could go to the casino.
Okay, go to the casino.
And that's what I did. So, but I never was spending my money. I was spending the fraudulent money. Then when I would go back to work the next day, I didn't do it. So maybe a week or 2 later, I was like, man, I'm gonna get me some more names. So I would get another 5 or 6 names. And then it got out of hand within that little length of time. And I was like, oh man. So each time that I took the names, I promise you, I felt so remorse. I was like, I'm not gonna do it anymore. I'm not gonna do it anymore. And I actually did stop. So in late November, I took the names like in March of 2006. In late November, I was being investigated, but I didn't know at that time that I was under investigation. So when one of the investigators came from the state tax commission. He came inquiring about one of my employees, but at the same time, he was really inquiring about the names that I had taken, but I didn't know. I even interviewed with him. He told me everything was well, don't worry about it. So I didn't think nothing else of it.
Didn't realize that,
they was building a case.
Well, you didn't realize that the storm was brewing at that time.
It was brewing at that time.
To bring you down.
Right. But one particular day I went to work because I would always take like a week or 2 weeks off during the beginning of tax season because I would be so busy. And I went back to work, and I used to advertise at work. I had a lot of clients, clients from work as well. And I noticed that some of my advertisement was taken off the board. And I was like, somebody took my advertisement. All I'm thinking about, maybe somebody didn't care for me, maybe took the information down. But at that time, CID had taken the information down. Oh. And then when they was checking my computer, I guess they checked it like in the evening time when everybody was gone. And that's how they was able to trace my employee login to match the information with my business.
So you were secretly being investigated.
Right. But all the time that I ran my business, I have always ran a reputable tax business. I never defrauded any of my clients.
It's just that you took some information from the inmates.
From the prison. And it was wrong. I took that information and I came home and I filed fraudulent tax returns. And when people think of identity theft, they think, okay, well, this person ruined someone's credit because they took their credit cards, they stole out their identity. That wasn't the case with me. I just took a Social Security number and filed a tax return, and I never used that number again. I just destroyed it. Oh, and then I didn't leave a paper trail per se in my office because my office was located behind my home. So I could get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and go into my office and run the report, take out all the fraudulent tax returns because the money came on debit cards. So I would take all of that, and I never left files. So my sister, she ran that location. So when she came in, she didn't know that those people even existed.
Oh, okay. Because you handled that.
I handled that.
Oh, okay. Well, we are going to take a break and come back, and we'll talk about the prison part.
Okay.
All right, beloved, we will be right back. To obtain your own personal copy of Caught, From Correctional Officer to Veteran Inmate, go to www.caughtmgt.com or www.amazon.com or www.barnesandnoble.com. Welcome back, beloved. Okay, now we are going to fast forward here. We are in the book. Now, the book itself is very riveting. It will certainly capture your attention. I mean, you talk about a whole lot. You go in details about what happened, and just really good to me, really, really good. And I did tell you, I said, well, I'm surprised. You can make a movie out of this, and it's so interesting. Wow, it's sort of like really? But anyway, you realize that you did wrong. You realize that. And of course, you didn't want to put anyone else's life in jeopardy. Your family didn't know about, right, your diabolical scheme or what you had done. But anyway, it landed you in jail. Tell us about when you were in some part of Nevada when you got the call from your sister to let you know what was going on back at home.
I was I had a paid trip to Laughlin, Nevada. I would always get these expensive trips with just free. You can invite 1 or 2 friends, and sometimes they would give you a trip where you can invite as many as up to 4 people. This particular time, it was just me and a friend. And I had pre-planned the trip. It was in January of 2007. And we got there on a Tuesday, and we gambled that night, half of the night. So that by 4 o'clock that morning, I said, well, I'm gonna turn my phone off and, and get a little sleep, because we was tired because we had been on the jet. And when we got there, they had a lot of entertainment for the people that was on the jet, on the flight. So when I woke up that morning, I looked at my phone and I was like, because I never turn my phone off, never turn my phone off. And I was like, oh man, I have like 36 missed calls. So I called my sister and she was like, you need to come home. What you been doing? All these people at your house, the FBI, the CIA, the State Tax Commission, just everybody. And then the first thing I asked her, I was like, well, I didn't do anything, so I don't know why
they still don't know what's going on.
Right,
Okay.
and at that time, I didn't know that they had caught on to I had filed fraudulent tax returns. I just thought maybe it was something else. I didn't honestly, I know that I had did something wrong, but I wasn't thinking like that. So I asked her, where was our mom? I said, you know, where's mom? And she said, oh, they have her in the living room and they won't let her move. She's sitting on the couch and, you know.
And the way you described, you know, the ordeal that your mother and your sister, what they experienced, it was sort of harsh, the way they treated
because
them.
It was like 30 people that came to the home. You had some at the, behind my home, in the office, and they was just like, they asked my sister and everybody that was in there, because she was actually working, and they asked these people for their ID. And it was ironic because one young lady in there, her name was Janice. And so they said, what's your name? And she said Janice. And they just snatched the lady up out the chair. Didn't ask for her last name. The lady looked nothing like me. I had all my credentials on the wall, my pictures. And so then they was like, what's your last name? And then she told them her last name. And they had, just snatched the girl up out the chair. And then they was like, oh, this not Singleton. And, took the handcuffs off or whatever they had did to her. So it kind of frightened the young lady. And my sister was like,
apologize.
My sister was like, that is not my sister, and she don't look nothing like her. And she said one of the ladies made a little smart remark. And then they asked everybody for their ID. And so they just asked people to leave, the couple of people that was in there, and told my sister that they could come back like in a couple of hours. So my sister asked if she could go in the house with my mom. I don't think they let her went in the house, but they left, well, my mom left too, after they took everything out of my office, like my computers and the files. So my sister came back later. And at that time, they were shook up because they really didn't know what was going on. And then my son, at that time, he had just graduated from USM. And my sister called my son and said, look, it's not looking good. I don't know what your mama done did, but you need to get home. And at that time, when my son got home, apparently they had did their research because my car was parked at the airport. Me and my son both drove BMWs. And they was like following my son, thinking that it was me. And apparently they thought that my sister and my son was just trying to cover up, like I was hiding out, which I wasn't. And so they was like following my sister and my son, and they asked them, like, where is your sister, where is your mom? And my son was like, well, she's out of town. And they said, well, you in her car? And he was like, no, this is my car. And they ran the tag and seen that it was his car. And then they was like, well, if y'all don't tell me, they just kept harassing them.
So you go in details about that in the book. So we have such short time to go. So you ended up, you go to court and all of that you went through like what, 3 different attorneys?
I went through 3 different attorneys.
The second one that you made mention, oh my goodness, I tell you, he wasn't the right one for your case.
He wasn't the right one for my case.
Yeah, because he wanted you to accept so many years.
So many years. I had a complicated case because I was facing state charges as well as federal charges. And what made it federal charges because I had bank fraud, wire fraud, and aggravated identity and filing false documents.
So you ended up in Marianna, Florida.
I ended up in Marianna, Florida at a federal camp.
Okay. And did you serve both terms, what they call it?
My time was ran concurrent.
Okay. And you served, what, 3 years or whatever?
I served like right at 3 years.
Right at 3 years. So let's talk about what's going on now, because everything is in this book. It's, like I said, it's a very riveting and very good book. It goes into details on so many things.
Detail by detail.
Yes, and it's just awesome. Not what you did was awesome.
Right.
It was bad. It was wrong.
It was
okay?
wrong.
But the way you tell it, and you realize your ways and stuff. So let's talk about where you are now. As far as getting your life back right.
Right now, I'm currently working. I've been working since I've been home I've been home for a little over 3 years, and I've been working for the same company. I attend Mississippi College. I'm working on my MBA in accounting. I'm lacking like 6 hours. Also, I just got my certification as a life coach.
Okay,
so I'm working
great.
on that.
Did you?
Yes, ma'am. And I'm in the process of working on my second book.
Are you going out speaking, you know, sharing your experience?
Yes, I'm going to do speaking engagements, and I'm planning on going to like some of the high schools to talk.
Okay.
And as well as some of the colleges.
Okay, well, we are going to take one more break and come back and let you give out any contact information for anyone who may be interested in purchasing Cult.
Okay.
We will be right back. Welcome back, beloved. I got to tell you, this book is very interesting. We can all learn from it. You know, I believe that you can learn from other people's mistakes, some things that you don't have to experience yourself. So, Janice, first of all, tell us if someone is interested in purchasing a copy, or should I say obtaining a copy of Cult from Correctional Officer to Federal Inmate, where can they go? And
they can go to my website, www.caughtmgt.com. Also, the book could be purchased at Amazon.com, BarnesandNobles.com.
Okay, now briefly, what would you tell someone who has a gambling addiction? You know, and because we know some addiction can mess up your life, let alone the life of your loved ones as well.
Right.
What advice would you give someone?
At first you have to admit that you have an addiction. And if you have a gambling addiction, if you realize that you're going to the casinos or whatever your choice may be as far as gambling, you might want to call that 1-800 number that they have listed around the casinos, or you may want to seek help and go to GA Gambling Anonymous, and you will learn a lot of information, and you will be there with a lot of people that talk about their problems. But a lot of people are kind of like shy, or they don't want to accept that they have a gambling problem, but before it get out of hand, because any kind of addiction can lead to criminal activity.
Right, and that's what yours did. It led you to?
It led me to stepping outside of my character, making wrong decisions, and whatever decisions that you make, you have consequences behind those decisions. Right. And I don't wish no one to go through the legal process, to go through the channels that I had to go through. It was a trying time. And once you serve your time, you still have that conviction on your name. And it's like, it's a lot that you have to go through. Okay. But I just like advise people, if you feel like you have an addiction, whether it's gambling or whatever, seek help.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming out. And again, your book is every bit interesting. Beloved, pick up your copy and do read. I mean, she gives a whole lot more insight. We can't do it in this interview, okay? But the book tells you a whole lot more. In the meantime, thanks Atria for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on The Lady Walker Show. Ta-ta.